Well, hello everybody. This is Paul Pedron. This is ZENcast Live. Happy to be here. Hope my audio is okay for you. Today is April 4th, and we are doing ZENcast Live. You may wonder what ZENcast Live is, but it's for ZenWorks admin, ZenWorks community, or anybody interested in how ZenWorks works. I say that because we cover different topics each week, the first and third Tuesday at 9 o'clock Mountain Time. And we're here for you and have suggested topics by the audience. So as we go through today, let's do a little bit of house cleaning. Be sure to log into the YouTube chat. That way you can subscribe or receive notifications when we go live. You can also put comments and likes in on the topics. The best viewing is auto 720p 60, and remember that if you're watching this video as a recording, check the description for any links or references to this particular presentation. We'll have links to the PDFs so that you have all the information in a PDF with links. You could see in the training, hello Heiko, glad you could make it. You could see, let me put in today's presentation in the chat. And we'll get that out to you so you can download it, follow along, or have it for future reference. Feel free to download that at any time. A few tidbits and crumbs. These are the latest TIDs and what's been released just recently. How to copy WinPE log files to USB. These are some things that have come out from support and from field support people, so that constant questions or continual questions that can be answered in a technical information document. So here's our tidbits and crumbs. Also some bits for you. OpenText acquisition versioning. We'll be going to year.quarter for our products. So you'll see that change. Instead of like ZCM 2020 update 4, it'll be ZCM version 23.3 for the third quarter, or whatever version it's going to be. Okay. Remember that the appliance security patches are released for February 23. So if you have any appliances that are file or ZRS, ZCM, ZSD, be sure to do those security patches. We do have a couple new community blogs out there for like deploying Windows Microsoft apps. Oh, I've signed out. Let me sign in just so we don't have it again. Log in. And things like that. OAuth token authentication configuration, MS Modern authentication configuration, both for ZSD. But these are different things and links that'll take you right to those discussion points. Okay. Now, one note that next ZENcast, we will have Craig Wilson, who's Backline Tech Support, will be on and showing us how to deploy Microsoft Store applications using ZenWorks bundles. They're getting a lot of calls about this. He put out this blog. He also wants to put it out on his ZENcast. So that will be the next time on April 18th. Some of the crumbs are things like blogs, token authentication, or hybrid workspaces, or those types of things. So they're all listed here. They're all linked. So if you download this presentation, you'll have them. Remember that ZCM 2020 Update 2 lifecycle ends April 2023. And you can get that from the lifecycle page. But be aware that of your products and when they expire, so you can keep them current. And you'll be able to, for any support and so forth. Okay. So if we highlight this and go down, you could see here, and this is a little small probably for you, so let's go down. And you could see that that expires, update 2 expires April 30th. Okay, so be aware of that. Get your systems updated so it could have proper support and so forth, and you're not fighting that battle. And remember, fail to access system update on port 77444. They do log to the Zeus out log. So that came up in one of the support calls, so just noting that for your digestion. Let's do a little recap. Last time we did the ZDC integrity checks and analysis. We looked over the prerequisites, downloading and checksum. You want to always, whenever you download, do the checksum to make sure that it's complete. And then running ZDC integrity check and reviewing ZDC logs, how it affects your system, which it doesn't, and what you can get from those logs. We covered that last time, so feel free to look at that recording if you're interested in the ZDC reporting. Today we're going to do the ZENinfo log analysis. So we will have, we will be looking at the benefits, we'll be looking at running the tool, running it, and the tools that we use to analyze it, and what the results files are. So what is, after running it, what are the results? And where do we look for our particular issue that we're looking for? There are a couple of links here for a bundle I created back when I was in support, and it's still valid today, for running the info collect. And we'll cover that when we go through our ZCM, but you could actually download that zipped bundle through the link here. And then Notepad++ language file. Very handy, that I used when I was in support to highlight things that kept coming up and needed to be in our that I was looking for. Sometimes those logs are just so tedious and drawn out that it's hard to find what you're really looking for in the issue. And the language file in Notepad++ I found very helpful. Okay, so ZENinfo benefits. You can run this at any time. I will say it's not without impact, it's with minimal impact, because depending on what you're running it on, it may impact the system while it's collecting those logs or running some things. I say that because the primary and satellites, if you're looking for the Zen loader or Zen services logs, you could run a ZENinfo and get all the logs. So if support's looking for Zen loader or Zen loader and Zen services and these other logs, just run a ZENinfo and it'll collect everything for you. Now, the one thing that it will do is it's quite big, because the Zen loader and Zen services are large logs, right? So you want to make sure that you have the space, that it collects and zips it up, and it'll take a little bit of time to make sure that you have that. So then you'd upload it to the FTP site. Okay. ZENinfo, or otherwise known as ZAC-info collect, and running it. There are different ways of running it. Setting the logger level. I'm showing a higher volume, so I'm going to decrease it a little bit. Let me know if it's too low. Setting the logger level either through a command line interface or through the ZAA, and naming the zip file. So there are different parameters you can run, and then of course some of the tools. Checking the TIDs, the checklist. You can have a checklist. I like using the SQLite data browser, policy viewer if you're grabbing policies, and Notepad++ with the language file. So let's go right into it and see what we have out there as far as 150 is my zone. We'll redirect to 7443. Okay. All right. This is obviously the zone. ZENinfo. We're going to run to gather the logs of a particular issue we may be having on a system. So we'll go back over to. Oh, we don't have to go to this one. We need to go to this guy. I thought I already had this open somewhere. Let me look. I do right here. I don't need to open it again. Okay. So this is my workstation, right? And we are currently registered. Let's check out where we're registered. Open this up and we can get some details from here. So we can see that we have some anti-malware files that aren't installed. We can see the bundles that we currently have in place. The info collect, we'll cover that in a minute, and Notepad++. All right. This is basically just a couple of user-signed bundles that I have. But if we look at the agent, we can see that we're 2020 update 3. If we look here, we have the agent is 2020 update 3 right over here. And so I was doing some testing with this particular device. It's Windows 10. So let's go ahead and do a quick run. We can go ahead and run. We're logged in as a normal user, and it'll start collecting files, right? And this takes a minute because it's going through certain things. It's grabbing files, it's grabbing registry entries, it's grabbing versions, and those types of things. We're going to go through a brief a briefing on the folders that it collects, so we could see kind of where to look. That'll help us where to look on these logs to find particular issues. And I do have some resources at the end on the slide deck that takes you to the debug situation, the debug TID that's been around forever, and other areas that will help you if you're searching for like remote control management or something like that. So this is collecting the logs. While it's collecting the logs, it'll obviously sum it up at the end. But we're going to go over to our control center, log in again. Yeah, okay. This one was open for a while. Let's redirect. Let's try again. And we're going to look at our info collect. Now, this you can download. This bundle I created when I was in support. It was for a particular issue where the user did not have rights to collect all the logs we needed, like the policy logs. And you couldn't log out because then those policy logs would get removed or deleted or weren't in the right profile. So this particular bundle actually goes through a lot of actions to make sure we gather all the logs, whether it's policy related or the registry. The user wouldn't have rights to do reg edit, but this takes care of all of that. And so I created this in order to help me out for this one particular point, this issue. And the first thing you want to know about ZENinfo is whether it's in debugging or not, right? The logging level. And you could change the logging level either through a command, ZAC logger level debug, right? Or you could do it, which is command line, or you could do it with the, where are we? It's still running. Or you could do it in here under logging, under the ZAA, right? We can go ahead and set this to errors or all the way to debug if we wanted to hit apply. This device is set now to debug logging, right? Another thing that you might want to do before, if you have a consistent error, you might want to clear the log, okay? This will clear out the log so you could start fresh, so you don't have all that residual of the past 3 to 5 days in the log to where you have to start wandering through the logs, finding the right timestamp and so forth. Okay, so if we open up the log folder, and it's not opening up. Oh, there it goes. Okay. You can see it's building it because we're running the ZENinfo here. So it goes into the local store. All right. And you'll find the ZMD messages. And that's really what that's the crux of most of it. That's all your operations and things that are happening in the ZenWorks adaptive agent system. There are other logs as well, but this is basically where you want to look. And so it's still collecting some of these product install informations. There's like 12, as it says, 12 different areas. Once it gets past that, it goes fairly quick. But it's still collecting. You can see it builds up, and it's slowly getting bigger and bigger. So you'll want to keep an eye on that. But you can set it to debug. Now, we did not have this set to debug before we ran this ZENinfo. So it's gonna be in normal errors mode, just so you know. But we're gonna change that when we run it through our executable, running our info collect. Okay, so this is just one command, one action in this bundle. And again, you could download this bundle and tailor it to how you need, but it basically goes and it makes sure that this is removed, the TS is removed, and I called it troubleshooting. Notice it's in the user's profile, so if I'm logged in as that John Doe user that doesn't have any rights, it's going to make sure TS is removed. Then it's going to prompt that it's gathering some troubleshooting info. Okay, so hey, by the way, we're going to do some troubleshooting gathering of logs, just to let you know. Displays the message, creates a directory, right? It deletes it to make sure it's clear, creates it, and then it grabs or it creates some other internal folders within troubleshooting. Okay, and then we create just a CTS, which is a staging point for all the log files. So we're going to move the data into the user profile because the user can't go into CTS if he doesn't have rights. So he won't be able to send those to you. So we use the normal CTS as a staging area, and then I create a user profile area so that he has access to those. We also do a poll viewer, so we actually install some files or bring some files down, poll viewer, analysis check, and SQLite browser. Because if you weren't aware, there's about 3 or 4 databases in the ZAA to track bundle statuses and launch statuses and those types of things. So this is a self-sufficient bundle that has all the tools it needs to review the logs. Also the group policy service log, right? It grabs that. And then it does some workstation and user profile policy files it grabs. Again, if you log out, those policy files get removed by default or are non-accessible, and they get rebuilt when you log back in. So you want to be able to run this at the time of failure for that user that doesn't have rights. And then ZMD messages log. We also want to grab the group policy report, and we launch the executable for GP result, right? And it goes into that user profile TS, all right? And you can see that we're running this as logged in user, okay? Because that's not an issue for this particular GP report. We launch executable for the reg, and we grab the HKey users, and it goes into that TS also. You can see that this one is run as a dynamic user administrator. Okay. We also do the HKLM. I did the group policy keys and launch executable to export HKLM, right? Local machine. And again, these are set to run as dynamic administrator. You'll also see that we have a success return code of 1, so it won't prompt us saying it's complete. It'll just keep going. 1 is a great one to a success code is typically 1, so we want to make sure that those are done. Then we move all the files. Any files that are in the TS to the user profile so that we can zip them all up. Once we grab that, because we want to make sure we get that right away, then we launch the executable ZENinfo. All right, and it's going to go to the user profile TS, and we also give it so we know what machine it came from and what username it came from. We put those variables in the file name so that we can see, who actually ran it and the username or the computer it was run on, because we want to make sure that if these get shuffled up to, you know, our support staff in our local in our help desk, or if it's shipped up to us at Micro Focus or OpenText, we want to make sure that we can detail those things, right? And again, that's done as a secure system user in this case. Okay. And then we go in and we clean up CTS because we're done with that, ready for the next time it might need to be run. So let's go back to here. It's still running. I don't know why it's taking so long here. We can see ZMD messages. Let's see if it's advanced anymore. No, it's kind of hung up. That's a bummer. I'm going to go ahead and Control C this. Oh, there it goes. And we're going to look through some of the logs that it collects. Again, it'll tell us where it posted those right in the ZENinfo. If you're not certain, it actually gives us a return of the file name and everything. Let's look at a couple of things while we're here. If we look at the PC, if you have any questions along the way, please shout them out. Let me know. This is desktop, so the computer name is desktop, 8QT382H. Okay, it's not in a domain, it's just in the work group. All right, and we're logged in as student here. So you can see it grabs some agent cache, whatever's in the cache, configuration data, debug logs, inventory data, when it was last scanned, what's the current scan, was it a delta scan, and when it pushed it up. Product install information, refresh times, status event information, which could be the Windows events, system information, ZAB data, Zeus, ZIcon properties, and patch. Okay, packaging of files, cleaning, complete, and it shows you the path here. Okay, we're logged in as student. So if we look at users, let's go back over there, ZENinfo, it's right here. Okay, let's go ahead and extract this, extract all. And that way we can go in. This is what you'd be shipping up there to support if they're asking for it, or to tech support. Now this was a straight run. This wasn't the bundle deployment. The nice thing about the bundle deployment, even if it's in this mode, is you can have your, they call up the help desk, they say I'm having an issue and you suspect that they need some type of ZENinfo. You could just have them run it right from their ZAA. Okay, so that makes it real handy. They don't have to type in any command, open up the command prompt, or any of that stuff. All right, so we're going to go through these. Let me see, there it is. Yeah, all right, so we're going to go through these while I run the other one. All right, just so that if it takes time, the other one will run. We're going to first go, we can close this. We can go here. And we see our info collect. Remember I told you it's going to prompt, it's going to tell them a few things to prep. So this bundle has a lot of details to it so that it informs the user not to do a whole lot of things or power down or those types of things, right? So we're going to run this, and it's downloading those files, and it's gathering information. So gathering information will only take a couple minutes. Log collection will reside in student TS directory. So that way they know what they have to ship back. Okay. Now I didn't press OK because I had a time limit on that, but they could easily have selected OK. All right. So now we're launching a few things. This is the GP results and shipping GP results out. So we have those details for group policies. Here's regedit for HKLM, and it's going to run through those. It'll get to zeninfo at the end. So, all right, let's go back while that's running. We'll move this up to the side. Okay, while it does its thing. Let's see what's in the ZENinfo. Of course, the info collects other things, but let's just see the basis of the ZENinfo and what it has. And I think I put, yeah, they're all right here. Agent cache info. So it has basically the cached information and bundles the app data and the app state. So the app state is, what state is it? Was it deployed? Is it not deployed? Is it, where does it reside? What state is it in? And then, of course, the app data. And you can see the GUID here, right? So they have their GUIDs related to them, all right? There are some DB files. Remember, I told you that we had a couple of databases. And we're going to get into these as soon as this one completes, because this is a great, this tells you everything about the files, everything about the objects and what's going on with them. Were they successful? Were they unsuccessful? It's just a little small database that keeps track of those. And that's how the ZAAs does that. So DB files is great to have, be aware of. This is the actual cache of the file data and the object data. Okay. Now, a lot of that stuff you don't really need to know to get into, but it's there. So the databases are the easy way to figure out what is present in your system. Anti-malware is there. So for the antivirus, we can see the agent status, and it has a database as well. This is the event info, the database, and then any events. Now, I don't have anti-malware on here, so my quarantine should be empty and the threats are empty. So we don't have that displayed because I didn't turn that on this zone yet, but that's where those things would reside. And it's fairly obvious, right? Anti-malware info. Config info lets us know the configuration of ZenWorks and the different policies, pre-boots, the states of what you've set in ZCC for it to have run on that machine or be available on that machine, right? What is your audit? What is your branding? There's a branding policy that we have. If we look over at our ZenWorks Control Center, we can see that we have a branding policy, ZAP branding. Okay. And actually, I don't think that's the one it's calling out there. I believe it is. Nope, it's probably that one there, or DA branding. Okay, so that's what's enabled on this particular box. It's a branding policy. If we open that up, we can see some HTML information. And again, this isn't, depending on how deep you want to go, you can just investigate on what's going on. Okay. All right, let's go back out here a little bit. So that's configuration information. The one that I found very, very helpful, well, you have the debug logs. We'll get back to those, right? And each one of these have a collection info. When did it start the collection? When did it finish the collection? But here you have system updates, updates completed and in process. When did they occur? Those types of things. But the Zen inventory is when your inventory kicks in and you have work. You basically have this is what it shoves up to ZCC so that you can see the last full was on 4.3. The last one was also on 4.3 shortly after that when I triggered it, but it's just a delta. Okay, so it'll do, depending on when your full scan is or your delta scans are, those show up there. You also have other things like usage logs if you're using them and so forth. But that's how ZCC gets them, is it shoves this stuff up. It delivers them up to your either satellite or your primary. The MD status is another database, okay, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So your property page, I'm going to go here real quick. When you go to technician application, you have your agent, you have your servers, right? You have your bundles and so forth. That's what the property pages are, okay? So if we go to status, agent, this is basically the same details, all right? So you can see there. So this, again, this is how we can double check to see what is on your box when you send us a ZENinfo. That's why these are so critical to support, is to be able to see exactly, you know, what your version is, what the policy is doing, what zone you're connected to, which policies are in play, right? There's successful ones. There may be unsuccessful ones. Which bundles are in play, okay? You say, I'm having a problem with info collect, and it's having a problem, you know, this particular bundle's having a problem. Then we know going into here, if we go to property page info and bundles, we can then see the details of what's going on with that, okay? So if I do show properties, oh, yeah, it's going to try. All right. And then that small database also shows the bundle GUID that's in play for that, you know, and which version. Okay. All right. So that's for property page info. Property page info is great. Really helps us out in understanding. We also can see the debug logging. If it's in debug, we can go, oh, it wasn't in debug. Can you get me a debug log, right? So run it again in debug. So this really helps us out initially to see how things are set up. Product info, this is for the agent itself. So this lists all the files. And this one lists all the registry details for the agent. So you can see here that we have product file information and the location of the particular file itself. And I'm kind of waiting for it to finish refreshing. They're fairly large files, especially the first one. There we go. So that's, and again, the collection info is just when it's collected this product info. So each folder has a collection info in it. So this shows us the state. So we may have a registry string that needs to be in a particular setting, maybe a 1 instead of a 0 or something, that, and we can tell from here all the ZCM settings for the registry. Okay, so you can see what's set, and we can identify if something's conflicting. Now this again is just for the agent. Okay, for the product files, yeah, you may say, well, you know, this comes in handy because it has the versioning of the file. And remember, we also, if you have a problem and you need to install an FTF, you may want to, you know, you install that FTF, it may replace files or change registry, right? So your launcher.exe may be different than what is normal, but maybe that's because of the FTF. Or maybe it's missing. We can look in here and go, for some reason you're missing a particular file, and we need to send that to you, or figure out why that's missing. And some of those things may be because you're not using patch. So you're not going to have some of the patch configurations or asset management or whatever it is. Sometimes it won't utilize those particular files because of not using that feature, or it's not configured. But this is all the files and where they reside. Okay. You even see the cache key the working directory for patches. There's a lot of patches in here, so they're going to show up. All right. So this one is real handy for identifying if something is missing or if something is a different version. Okay. Close all. That's the product info. So that shows the product info of the agent itself and how it's working. The refresh obviously sounds just like it's named. What's the refresh? System start, partial refresh, general refresh, when it occurred, and what took place for that. What's the duration? Oh, you may have long refresh times. Oh, for goodness sakes, it's like 3,000 seconds or something. That's a long time. We need to start figuring out why. We can easily identify what component is actually, what part of the refresh is having an issue. Okay. So that's where the refresh info comes in. And of course you have device and user depending, and I think the index is combined. Did it say that? I think it did. System refresh type doesn't say combined, but I think it's combined. Current user, device, yeah, these are all combined. And in sequence, you can see as it goes through its refresh. I love system info. All right, it collects one installed MSIs. What MSIs are installed? This is across the board. What MSIs are installed. So obviously we have some Novell ZenWorks FDE, but if we look down, just go down a ways. I thought this had all, maybe it doesn't. ZenCore, I don't have much on this box, but yeah, so Microsoft redistributable files and its version. So we could see what MSIs have been installed on this box. Okay. Now if it comes from something other than MSI, it's going to be different, right? It's not going to be listed here. But you can see here what those MSIs are. This is one of my favorites. It's just a sysinfo. It runs it just like you do on any box if you run sysinfo, but it collects that, and we can then see the details about this box from a system information standpoint. How many cores it has. Obviously it's VMware. For my particular, it's a desktop. We have disk space. How much is available? Oh, you're missing, you're way down on disk space or something. Okay. And it goes through all the hardware resources. I'm sure you've seen this before. What's on the machine? What's your network? Right? You can see what the adapter is. Okay. Multimedia, audio, video, so forth, and software environment, system drivers. So again, it's very comprehensive. The ZENinfo does a very comprehensive job in trying to find all that information you may need. Okay. Let's see, and we have the Zeus, the update, the Zeus log out in Zeus messages. Okay, there's your certificates and going through them. So again, we have other logs we have to make sure we're aware of because it may not be in the ZMD messages log. Okay, and then ZPM if you have it set to debug. All right, and it's logs. But back to the debug logs, obviously we have the log file for the different areas like local store ZMD messages. Now this is great. I mean, this is almost too much, right? I remember being in support, being a customer, and it was very hard to decipher going through this. All right. So finding that right thread, one tip was, as I mentioned earlier, making sure that you go to logging. If you have a consistent failure, clear the log first so that it'll clear that all out and you're able to start from ground zero instead of 3 days back, looking through the logs. I'm going to go ahead and close this. But one thing that I've found handy while working in support, we can close this too. All right. Now we should have another one. Notice this one here. I'm going to close this. This is a one from our info collect. All right. It has those added things like the registries, the GPO policies, GP results, and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and extract this. Extract all. And I take that back. This is just a ZENinfo. Here's all the other areas that we collected from. Actually, it's up here, registry. So HQ local machine, user, trusted zone map. So there's different things in here. And you could then see if we edit this. These are registration entries. We don't want to do, yeah, we want to edit. So you can actually then search through this. This is a full thing. So it's complete. It's thousands of lines, right? But this was helpful in seeing what the state was at the time of failure for a non-permissioned user. Okay. And again, we have our ZENinfo with the name of the, come on, I'm trying to move this. I'm going to close this. Let me see, let's see how Notepad++ can help us. Now, go into Notepad++. We're going to install the latest version 8.5.1. It's going to pop up. We're going to grab this path. File open. Let's go to the path. All right. And let's go to debug logs. If you're doing a system update, an agent update, you might want to go there. So we'll go, yeah, we can go to the local store, CMD messages. Now again, you're looking at this, we see a fail to retrieve device data. There really isn't any real issues that I'm showing you except how this works for you. We're going to go ahead and install a language file. So how you do that is you go into defining your own language and you create a new language. Now I have a language that you can download also from the link here. Let me go here. I'm going to put it in chat. Okay, and if you're looking for the info collect to play with that bundle, you can grab it from the chat as well. Okay, so as we go into here, we're going to go to documents. Where did I put them? Downloads, documents. Where did they go? I have to find my XML file. File name. Cancel. I thought I downloaded them. Where did they download to? Let's go look for Notepad++. I went to Actions, Install Files to. So I created XMLs for like remote management, ZenWorks logging, and they go to TS Utilities. All right, so let's go there. And if we go back over here, we do open. Nope. We do import from. Let's C: TS Utilities. Okay, let's go ZenWorks logging. Import successful. All right. So now we can close. Oh, I wanted to keep that open. We could see now that the language is in, and we want to use that language. Let's go ahead and close this. I don't want this anymore. Patience, patience, patience. I thought that would take care of that. Open. MD messages. Oh, that's interesting. Is it just taking a minute? Oh, it's just taking a minute. And now you can see things start come to life. Okay? Through that language file. That language file, if we look at the language file, and we go to CCM logging, we can see that the keyword list. Now, I notice failed isn't corrected, isn't there. So I have a few things. So this is my error, so I highlight everything in red, right? Yeah, there's because it refreshes for the file that's open, so it takes a minute. Because if I make any changes in here, it'll say, okay, let me do it right now. This is MSIs, so I do in blue. Let me get right over to the failed. So you get the idea. Each one of these groups is a different color. So this is success. And you can see here I have successfully. I put GWIDs in here. So the GWIDs would be identified. 17.0. You could put 2020 update 3, so forth. You have refused. You have exceeds. I'm going to put in failed here. And it'll take a second for it to type it out. And then this failed should show up as red for an example. But see how slow it is? It'll refresh for, I should have cut and pasted. All right, so as we're looking at that, what else do we got? So, and we can't cover everything in this session for all the errors, but this is a tool that'll help you bring that out. If there's a particular GWID that you wanted to look up because it's failing on this bundle, you could put that in the language and it'll then go and highlight that. You can do a search find, but you're not seeing all of them, right? So with this tool, you can actually see everywhere that particular color would be that particular failure. Okay. And it might be case sensitive, so I'm curious to see if I set that or not. This is the last letter, D. Give it a second. So again, you could download the Notepad++ language just to help you out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go close. I'm going to go a new. I'm going to type in bracket failed. And then I'm going to go Control C. So if I then go to language, CCM logging, and this is how I go through testing it. So if I did, see if it highlights, because it's presented on here. Define your language. Save. Oh, did I don't have to save. It should just be saved already. It didn't show up. So I have some setting incorrect. But you could see the action. You could see remote management. So anything with remote management I have in purple. You could see anything with registration. Let's go full screen. Any knots, not cached, so forth. So it really helps bring out those details you're looking for, especially if it's GUIDs and those types of things. And then you can get right to the meat of the issue and start marking them. Okay. Action set queue processor thread, conflict, fail. All right, you get the idea. So that's one tool, and included in that is the um, DB, the SQLite browser. It may be an older version, but it's there, and you can replace it in the bundle if you need to. TS utilities, because it's collected. It's collected the group policies and the registries that those are there. So okay, so those are some of the things that I wanted to at least present, not so much getting into the actual analysis of logs because the errors can be so vast, but what about the tools that you can use? And then of course there's a remote management XML that's exclusively for remote management. I started doing individuals, then I just lumped them all together for this session as ZenWorks logging. Okay. And I think that's the basis of it. So feel free to download those, use them, send me emails if you have questions about them. But it's very helpful, and the info collect is complete there as well. You can just import that right into your zone and test it out. Be sure to test it out and tailor it to your needs, because it's not, this isn't official open text. This is something I built for support and for people to use. We've used this. I gave this to a customer to be able to grab that information that we needed for support. Okay. So again, the big ones are system info, property page info. When we receive it, we can see exactly what state it's in. The debug logs is very important to us. Obviously, make sure you set it to debug, right? And I don't know that we did that here. CMD, ZAC logger. It'll give us a different variables we can use. So we can do ZAC logger level debug, and it'll set that, or we can set it to reset log. And now, because we did manually change it, we should have this back to agent. Logging. No, it's on debug. Logger. What did we level? Okay. Now it should be agent logging. Now, the other thing is it didn't change it. I'm surprised. The global is from ZCC, and I didn't show you that. ZCC, you can go into the device, and you can go to settings. And you could actually set them that way. If you're investigating a particular device, in local device settings, you can override, and you could say reset or apply. You can also set it to debug if you wanted to. So let's go debug, apply, or let's go info. We haven't done that one. Apply. Okay. So let's refresh the workstation and see if it changes. All right. So refresh page. I know closest to the device wins. So if you had a folder with info on it and you had a device with debug, the device debug will win. And it may not be refreshed yet, but it'll eventually change to what you have settings. It's still, oh, it's still refreshing down here. Okay. All right. Let's see. Anything else as far as got info collect? We got Notepad++. We got the language file. Make sure you have it in debug. Here are a few references for the zeninfo command line reference. A TID for the for update 1 and update 2. It has some information in there regarding details about those versions. This is a troubleshooting TID I was talking to you about. It's been out there a very long time, but it's always kept update, and you can then control find if you have it. If you want bundles or policies, you're debugging certain things, remote control, you can do a search for those things, and it's very comprehensive. All right. New thing that was mentioned: old bundles assigned to a workstation. A new conversation came out, so you have that there available to you. Analyzing remote management failures is fairly new. That was a new blog, I think, or TID, sorry. And then ZenWorks deploy Linux agent issue is another one. So you have some references there in case they apply to you. You can look those up and feel free to use those. All right, so the March schedule, the 16th is the ZCM webinar on was on Azure AD and Mac Modern Management. So if you didn't catch that, be sure to go out and check those out. They're all on the discussion board for tips and news and events, each one of them that we've had in the past. ZENcast, Analyzing ZenInfo is today. Next time is ZENcast, How to Deploy Apps from the Microsoft Store using ZenWorks. Okay, so the Zen Store apps, or the Microsoft Store apps, deploying them with ZenWorks. And also the webinar, the ZCM webinar for this month, April, is on the 20th, and they're going to be covering inventory and reporting, both Bob Reynolds and Ron Van Herk. Future customer requests come in, so please email us at zen@microfocus.com. I'll be happy to set something up. We have a full library, on-demand library, out in the community site that has all the ZENcasts. It has all the monthly webinars and what we've covered so far throughout the last 3 years. Okay, so you can easily search for outages or bundles, and you'll find them there. Okay, currently on ZenWorks 2020 Update 3. The March PRU is out. April, I checked today, it hasn't been released yet. ZRS 7.8, ZSD 8.3.1, and Hybrid Workspaces 22.9. There's other links in there, as well as some of the features that are coming up in new releases, soon to be. You notice the version change. And then we have a bunch of community cool solutions, videos, troubleshooting, blogs, and those types of things that'll help you depending on what product you're looking for. Okay. This is a community. Most recent blogs out there that have come through: token authentication, online updates, and training for hybrid workspaces. These are the other live casts you'll see on the Thursdays of every month: Filer, Groupwise, ZenWorks, and OES iPrint, first, second, third, fourth. So those are all taken in sequence every month. So you can, if you have those products, tune in. Okay. One thing I'd like to ask is, if you're using UEM, there's a Gartner UEM quick questionnaire for customers. Give them your feedback on how you're using ZCM, and that'll help us greatly analyze. They'll analyze it and compare it with other vendors. Okay. Again, TTP EMEA was out there in February. Meet the Experts was a couple weeks ago, and then TTP USA is coming in person in Provo, July of 2023. Okay. The next ZENcast it's not on April 4th. It's on the 14th or 18th. Deploying MS Store apps with ZenWorks, and I appreciate everybody's time. I hope it was informative for you and for a better understanding on how to analyze those particular ZDM info logs. All right. Thank you so much, and stay safe. Any questions, shout them out in the chat. Thank you very much.